got a bamboo banger, a hell of an episode, because we've got a guest today. And this guest we've known for a long time. You've known him a little bit longer than I, but he is not only the weekend warrior commish for our fantasy football draft and league every year, but he's more than that. He's far more than that, and we love him to death. I can't wait to get into the conversation with Mr. Jacob Marshall. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a little while, since you did take the move across country outside of Phoenix. You're now in Florida. And so I kind of want to talk about that as well as we get into the podcast. But we're just excited to dive in and kind of get to know your story and share some pivotal moments and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun episode, man. We got a lot of great stories.
Yeah, this one's been a long time coming. Jake and I go way back, so a lot of the stories will not be mentioned on this podcast from our earlier days of friendship, but I have known Jake for, I think we're around 18 years, 17 or 18 years, and have definitely seen on both sides us grow quite a bit since we first met, and I've learned a lot from this guy. He's a couple years older than I, so I can't wait to jump in, dive in, peel back the years a little bit and talk about Jake's rise, not only professionally, but as a family man. And it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. Thank you both. Thank you, Phil. We do go back, I want to say like 2006, 2007. It's getting up there. Honored to be invited, honored to be on. And just like I said, just super impressed with what y'all been doing now for a year now. So it's going great. I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been a year already coming up. You have to fly back out to Phoenix to help us ring in the 1 year, Jake, because I know you're an avid listener since day one, and we appreciate that. But kind of take it back a little bit. You grew up here in Arizona. You're like a five-star recruit out of football, I believe. I can't remember the high school. You have to remind me. But you've got some dominating stats in the football world, and I'm pretty sure you were in the newspaper. That's when newspapers were delivered to our front doors. Not stating our ages here, but I do see some whiskers a little bit grayer than in years past. We're all getting up there. But kick us off, man. Give us a backstory. Let us know what's going on. How are things going in your world, and where it all started?
Yeah, definitely. The gray is coming in, salt and pepper, as Robin likes to say. She loves it. But born in San Diego, but moved to Tempe area very shortly after, around 4 or 5 years old. Grew up in Tempe, went to school there in my entirety up through college and ASU and graduating. Not sure about the 5-star recruit, probably negative 5-star. I was just really fast, but not tall enough, didn't weigh enough. And as soon as you hit the field in community college, you're like, yep, these guys are on another level. So you see your retirement very soon when you get to the next stage of anything. But graduated from ASU in 2007. When I was my last 2 years of college, I was working at Wells Fargo when I met Mike and kind of met all of the mutual friends that we share today, and met Mark, who was on this pod a few months ago. And that's how I met Phil back in 2006, 2007 timeframe. And, the rest is history, so to speak, from there. But, it's just those are the early days in a really, really condensed nutshell.
We can connect those dots really quick out the gate, where Jake was a 5-star. One of the first Thanksgivings, I was like, we're bringing back the Turkey Bowl. Let's get all the guys out and let's play. And it's Jake and I, and I can't remember who else was on our team, Brian, but Jake shows up with cleats, and Mark thinks he's super fast, and Mark is really fast. Jake and Mark are both lightning. And I think Mike was on the other side, quarterback, but Jake and I, just playing our negative star selves a little bit before, we just had like a couple routes down, and we crushed him. And Jake was actually running routes, but the fact that he wore cleats, Mark just wouldn't let him live it down. He's like, "You wore cleats, that's cheating." And he's like, "I own cleats. Why should I wear them?" Anyway, Jake was 5-star in that game.
I'm like only 2 years removed from wearing cleats on a regular basis. So I was like, let's break out these puppies. I think I had my gloves too.
Yeah, I
had to be sure to catch the ball. Yeah.
And literally actually knowing the route tree and my terrible, inaccurate arm, we were still able to get some separation, and we had some fun that day. But that kind of takes me back to that portion of our life when I first met you. I remember the single cab Dodge, and I wanted a truck so bad then. Jake was actually working at Wells Fargo banking. I'm full-fledged in college mode. Just having a really good time. But Jake was always coming straight from work to hang out. He met Mike at Wells Fargo while I was in the banking industry. And that was really evident out the gate. At that point in his life, everything revolved around work. And for me, being in that party mode, like Mark and Mike and all those guys, they were hitting the ground in the workforce. And it really set an awesome example for me and say, okay, these guys were sharing me the mistakes that they had made or what they were going through. And I was able to absorb that. And it was a game changer for me, just operating 2 to 4 years ahead of what were my actual age peers. So take us back to then, Jake. Know that you're in real estate and property management now, but take us back to the banking days and meeting Mike and kind of how your career started.
Yeah. So I worked at Wells Fargo for, I think maybe a little bit more than the last 2 years of college. And I worked full time. At that time, the branches were still open on Saturdays. So pretty regularly, Monday through Saturday, hit or miss during the business hours, banking hours. And then I went to school full time for those 2 years on site. I'm not one for online classes. I wasn't at that time in my life. I like being in the classroom and having that discussion back and forth with not only our classmates, but also the professors. But I went to school Monday through Thursday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so it was, it was a busy time. But I was very convicted and dedicated. I've always thought schooling was very important to finish. It was a busy time, but like you said, Phil, we always got together on those at night, and I didn't go home and go to bed at 10 p.m. most of the time. It kept going in some ways, and so it was just a busy time in our lives, and in a lot of ways, burning the candle at both ends. And then as we all get older and more professional and settle down, you kind of realize that it's not sustainable.
Yeah, 100%. I remember, I met Phil a few years after you guys met and then got quickly incorporated into the group or integrated in the group. And I mean, we all ran in similar circles and did the same debauchery, if you will. And it takes a toll. And over time, especially, you and Robin have been married a long time. You got your boy Rope and, so that stuff settles you down a little bit too. And when you have professional goals, you started making waves and moving on up through, where you're at now and the industry that you're in. And so it's super inspiring to see and like the pivots that you've made and the moves that you made, back and forth and whatnot that have changed the trajectory of your life in an incredible way. And I thought one of the coolest things was when we were just trying to schedule this episode with you, we're like, hey, what about this time? You're like, no, dude, that cuts into my family time. I can't do it. And I respected the hell out of you just for saying that. Is like, hey, I've got my focus, my priorities, and my family is that. And if those are the hours that I'm dedicated to them, I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to say no to everything else that doesn't align with that. And that's a lot of things that we talk about on this podcast. So I thought that was really cool of you. And so we made it happen. That works with everybody. And there's just something small. So, kind of talk about the support that you've had because, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no family out there with you guys in Florida. And those are big moves. I've done a similar move, moving to Colorado and back and forth. And so I kind of know what that's like. But having your core, your rock in your wife and your son and, how that is helping you through the professional days and the personal days out there in the nice little beach.
Let's take a step back and since we were just talking about Robin, let's talk about that portion of your life when I saw a tremendous amount of change, which happens when a man finds a woman that he can see the rest of his life with, which you absolutely did. And talk about that. Could you talk about that whole process? Because I remember it very well. You were a changed man in regard to what you wanted. You knew what you wanted, and you pursued that directly. Talk about let's bring Robin into, since we were just talking about that and how you came to be in this wonderful marriage that you have.
So I met my wife Robin, we met for the first time in person at a house party in Tempe in late 2008. That's the first time we met. But before that, actually, Mark's wife Janessa, her and Robin are friends, and they grew up together and go way back in their lives. And so Mark and I are mutual friends. Mark and Janessa were dating, so we essentially met through our mutual friends. And just in the way that Janessa was telling me about this amazing person and how important, her family is, and her goals in life and what she was doing. She was in college at the time, finishing up her dental hygiene degree. And, she just sounded incredible. And, tongue in cheek at that time, I could tell Janessa, I'm like, that sounds like a girl I would marry. That's fantastic. And then when we met in person, the very first time I saw Robin, I told Mark, I told anybody that would listen, Janessa, one of my best friends, Gabe, I told him, I said, I'm going to marry that girl one day. And really the rest is history. But that house party was in late 2008. I didn't see her again until my birthday in 2009. And I didn't even know she was coming out for my birthday. That was a surprise, and it was fantastic. I actually sent a date home that was there for my birthday. I was just
I did not know that.
I'm like,
I remember this.
It was of course respectful, but I was just like, my 100% of my focus is going into this woman right here, because the last time I saw her for a few hours, it was incredible, and I'm not going to let it go another few months again from my birthday forward. So we hung out on my birthday. She finally gave me a first date on April 17th, and we became official, if you will, on May 9th. We got married 2 years later, and we've been married now almost 12 years. So she's my rock. We're each other's rock, and our family and Rowan is the most important thing to us in our unit. And and so to fast forward a little bit then to 2020, where I started with the firm I'm at in 2007. I started in accounting and collections. We manage community associations, so we have a corporate office, and then we have several communities across the country. And I was at corporate for a couple of years, and then went on site at my first community as a receptionist, as an administrative coordinator. Served in several different roles at a few other different sites in Arizona, but went from administrative coordinator to operations to finance to whatever we would, to whatever we needed to be doing in managing the association. But eventually in Arizona, I was an assistant manager essentially, and the opportunity came up for this beautiful community on the Emerald Coast of Florida, where we live now in Santa Rosa Beach. And it's where Robin went to school. So when we started dating in 2009, when I was working at corporate, I was actually doing the accounting and collections for the community that I work at now. And Robin knew the community and knew that it was beautiful, and knew that she's like, wow. And so, of course, trying to still woo this girl, I'm like, well, maybe I'll be the manager one day, marry me type deal. And and so, it's just it's funny looking back, because then in 2020, when that position opened up, I'd never been here before, and I flew here for the interview. I was offered the job that day, but I'd only been here for 36 hours. By the time I got home, I was only here for 36 hours when I accepted the job, and I'm like, all right, we're moving. So obviously relying on Robin and her knowledge of the area was a big factor for us, but we were ready for a change. We've been looking for a number of different things, and we just kind of felt like we wanted to get out of Arizona. It wasn't, I don't know how to put it. Just like long-term, we didn't see ourselves raising our family there. We wanted to try something new. And so in 2020, that position came up in Florida, and I'd like to say never looked back, but I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later and how that time in my life changed things. But so by and large, we've been here since 2020 for 3 out of the last 4 years.
That's awesome. That's an incredible story, dude. You manifested that shit. You were like, I'm going to be the manager of this thing. And you're out there peacocking, trying to get Robin to like you. And sure enough, you're now running the show over there, and it's pretty incredible. You guys, I mean, obviously we're close friends, and my wife Kim and Rob, we've all hung out. You've been on family Lake Powell trips with me, and I've been to your family's place at Roosevelt Lake, and we've hung out and had a lot of great times. And one of my favorite times was the National Hot Rod Day, which it was an NHRC or what's the
NHRA.
NHRA.
The races you got your first taste of nitro in the face.
Dude, that's like rattling the rib cage in the chest. You feel like you have to put those earplugs in there. It's wild. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun together, and it's just so cool to see the growth and raising your family, and how you're there for Robin, you're there for your son, and it's just I don't know. I respect the hell out of you, and I think it's really neat to those are big moves, moving across country, and having some familiarity definitely helps, but you still are you've got to figure it out, right? You have to meet new people, and the family's not out there, and you're like, hey, we're gonna challenge ourselves on purpose, and I know what I kind of want, and let's see if this works. Not a lot of people take that risk as a choice, right? It was a choice move for you guys. It's a great opportunity that you couldn't decide you couldn't pass up, but you could have said, no, I'm going to stay here in Arizona because it's my comfort zone. And you guys got out of your comfort zone, and it's been amazing ever since. I am jealous of all the pictures you send us of the crystal blue waters and the white sands and whatnot. So one of these days we'll have to get out and make a trip.
He lives in paradise.
Sure does.
It truly is the Emerald Coast. It's amazing, and it's really you just can't take it for granted, and you can't take for granted the drive to work that you have every day and what you see, and just like, I'm gonna pull over right here and look at the ocean for a bit. It's incredible, and you don't really know you don't know what you have until it's gone in some respects when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, Jake, that I've always respected and you're really strong at is being very fiscally responsible and forward thinking when it comes to money. And I've learned a lot from you in that regard. I was curious, like, for the listeners, what kind of stemmed that for you in regard to thinking long term about the future, not short term instant gratification, but playing the long game when it comes to money, and kind of how those practices were built? Because I know it was you had that head on your shoulders when I met you, which was pretty young. So I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about that.
That's an interesting question, especially a financial aspect. But I think it kind of organically goes back to growing up and me just in my mind always wanting to be that rock for my family and accomplishing whatever it is that we want to do. And different families have different goals and where they want to live or how they want to live or where you want to travel and what you want to do. But so I think money comes with those steps we make, and that's great. But really back to like day one, whether it be, for school, through college or what you're going to do, is putting myself in that position to be able to provide for my family. My parents were divorced growing up, and my mom was single most of our upbringing. And I saw how hard she worked and how much effort and time it took for her to raise myself and my two sisters. And it wasn't always hunky-dory, but she persevered and stayed on track, and taking care of her family was the most important thing to her. And she did really good at that. So me moving forward and taking care of my family, it was always my goal to be there for my family, to be able to provide for my family, and they wouldn't have to worry about that unless they wanted to, right? It's not like, oh, I work, you can't work, but it's like you do what you need to do. And, and right now it's focusing on our family unit. We're very fortunate that Robin can be a stay-at-home mom and take care of Rowan. It's a very, my son's only 5 years old, so it's a very important time frame in his life to be able to do that. And my mom couldn't do that at the time. I guess to answer your question, I guess money comes with the hard work and dedication that you put into what you do through school. And then at any job you take on or any role you take, putting in the work and the dedication to always wanting to get better, always asking what you can do more, always looking for improvement. And that's not just forward thinking to like my leaders and my mentors, but also to my team. And that's really where I am now, because, being the executive director of an entire team in a community, there's nearly 50 employees that I'm in their charge with and taking care of them. So, I'm not sure I answered your question about finances, but I was just kind of always thinking about that, and I didn't want to have to worry about how we lived our life. And money is something that comes with the roles that you take on and the hard work that you put in to get to where you want to be and accomplish your goals. And for me and my family, and that's kind of just how we want to live our life and what we want to be able to do.
Yeah, I think you answered it perfectly. I mean, just talking about hard work, dedication, you're always very loyal, and just a little bit more of a conservative approach, right? Like, it's the long game. It's not a sprint. It's, hey, I know where I'm going. I know what I need to do. I know I need to protect my family, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so when you look at money, it's like, I'm not loosey goosey with it. I'm not splashing it on things I don't need. I'm not, upgrading my airline tickets just for a little extra comfort. I mean, yeah, that's nice for sure, but I could use that money elsewhere, right? Like, those are little thoughts that go, through your mind. And I think it's super important, because you're looking at, okay, what do I want the next 10 years to look like? What do I want the rest of my life to look like? And if I'm loosey goosey with cash right now, I may not get there. But if I'm happy and I'm structured with, how I work and how I handle my finances, then my family's protected and we're going to get there, when it happens. So I think it's a testament to who you are and the hard work that you have.
Yeah.
That's huge. And it's proven fruitful for you being the executive director and just continuing towards your perception of success.
Yeah. And that's not to say that we don't spend money in a way that some people would look at us and be like, really, on that? And we just take the approach that, it's the experiences that we have in life, is not only together leading up for the first, 8 to 10 years, but then even now with Rowan as a family, like, it's the experience. Like, do we need to go stay, in a cabin in Georgia? No, but we do. And we have great time. We have an amazing experience and memorable moments. And Rowan was 2 years old the first time we did that. And we're going back in a few weeks. And Rowan's like, oh, the cabin with the hot tub on the porch and the mountains, and we're like, yeah, buddy. And he's like, yeah, I remember that house. I want to go back there. And that house is still on VRBO, and we're going back to that house. So seeing him remember those moments, and a number of other different trips that we've been on, whether it be now Disney World, that's what it's about. That's what it's about to me. And, we're just incredibly fortunate to be able to provide him those moments. And, you can't lose sight of that, because, not everybody can do that. So
absolutely.
But yes, but it's, I'm more in awe of other folks, whether it be y'all or other mutual friends or just other members of our families that are way more disciplined than we are, and, pretty frugal. And I'm just like, oh, really? Like, we're going to worry about that in this life? We only get one. Like, just go enjoy it. You can't take it with you. And I think we all know that life's too short. And so it's a cliche, but we really do believe in YOLO. And, what's the point of sometimes having it all when your life could end at any moment of any second of any day. Unfortunately, we've all experienced that, and we've seen it in real life.
Yeah, that was the genesis of my question, because you guys seem to do it right. That sweet spot of making sure that you are traveling well and having the most experiences of life for Rowan and yourselves, but thinking of the big picture. I was curious, for our listeners that have HOAs and live in neighborhoods that have some, I would like you to, from your perspective, what do people not see on the other side of an HOA, of what goes into property management that most people don't see? The amount, whether it's work or misconceptions or things that the listeners might not be seeing when they're writing a check to their HOA and maybe think that they're just dealing with where they can park or where their bins are on their street. Like, what I know that you have insight here and you've educated us a lot, but what may the listeners be missing out there?
It's kind of like the the back of the house operation and infrastructure and financial management that is really behind the scenes that nobody sees. When we really feel good about what we're doing, sometimes you're doing really well because nobody shows up for your board meetings. When you go into your board meeting and it's a large audience, if you weren't expecting that, you're like, what did I miss? What's going on? But no, behind the scenes, it's what HOAs really boil down to in a lot of ways is that it's a private property to your community. And so to maintain that private property, you got private roads, if you have gates, if you're a townhome or a condominium, then you have exterior maintenance of your buildings and roofs, and things need to be planned for and paid for, whether it be regular annual maintenance or planned for in advance in future reserve capital projects. And that needs to be organized. If you're a private community, if you're incorporated, you're a corporation, you're a business just like everybody else. You just happen to budget to zero. But, it's really because the cities aren't going to be there taking care of those things for you. And that's where HOAs kind of blew up, because you have developers that want to develop homes and commercial spaces and all these things. And the cities are like, generally speaking, the cities are like, yeah, that's fantastic. That's amazing. But, we're not paying for it. There's no new taxes. All of the maintenance and services are like, okay, well, you need to incorporate and make a community association and to take care of those things. So if you live in an HOA, if you have a pool, like I said, if you have a pool house or playgrounds and parks or basketball courts, all your funds are going towards those things. It's kind of akin to taxes, but it's not entirely the same thing. But yeah, I mean, you get a bad rap. It's usually the HOA is never on the news for a good thing. It's they sent a ridiculous violation letter, or they evicted a 95-year-old woman who's being carried out of their home. Those types of things are what makes the news. And 99.9% of all the other associations that are doing a really good job don't get the attention, of course. So that goes to a lot of different subjects in life, right? That's what makes it on the TV screen.
Yeah, it's a bit of a thankless job, right? And you just get left your trash cans out 2 days late, and you get the notice in the mail, and you're like, God damn it, I forgot about that. But I mean, right. It's good to paint that picture, right? I mean, if you live in a neighborhood with an HOA, your neighborhood's probably pretty clean, right? I mean, the houses and the landscaping's upkept. You go through a neighborhood that doesn't have an HOA, and you can tell pretty quickly that they don't have one, right? And it's just it's just a way of life, and any organization that's kind of managing anything, really, they're doing it the best of their ability, and they have to there's some rules and guidelines and all things that you do to make it appealing to the residents that are in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just add on that you can't tell when you drive through a neighborhood that's not in an HOA. And I've lived in HOAs and I've not lived in HOAs, and sometimes you wish you did live in an HOA so you could have somebody to go to and talk about things or issues that might be going on next door, or the pink house that was painted next door to you. Those types of things generally don't happen in a well-kept, well-managed community association.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to ask a 2-part question here to kind of wrap us up. What is next for Jake Marshall? What do you got upcoming? What does the next 10 years look like? And then, my friend, you're going to have to answer the question we ask everybody. What does success look like to you?
What's next? Well, we let me go back to 2020, when I first took this role, and I've held probably 6 or 7 different positions and moving up in the company. And so I came out here initially in 2020, and then in 2022, I had an opportunity to go back to Arizona to the corporate office and join the leadership team, which I accepted. It's kind of like, this is what I've always been working for. You think this is what you want, and it's the next, it's the next step up. It's the next leg up. It's the end game, right? But you're at that point, and accepted it, went back to Arizona. Within 4 months, 3 to 4 months, immediately regretted not being here in Florida and living here and having our family here, and most importantly, raising our son here. Extremely just dissatisfied with the decision I'd made, and that's not breaking news. I was very transparent with my company, the owners, and all of my leaders and mentors there, and so they knew that I wanted to get back to Florida, and it was just a matter of time until that happened. So, interesting enough, a position came back up, and I was able to come back. Came back in 2023, and back here. So now, looking forward, what I know is that I want to be here, and we want to raise our family here. And so for the next 10 years, I mean, this is where we're going to be. And we don't manage any other communities in this area. I don't want to go anywhere. I love where I work. I have a great team. It's challenging. Every day is different. And I feel like I can definitely impact change here compared to some of the other opportunities that might be existing throughout the country. And my company knows that. They know I want to be here.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, for the next 10 years, I think the community I work at is, it's dynamic. It's very, very busy with short-term rentals. So there's a lot of business going on, and it's a little bit over 20 years old. So there's a lot of long-term projects upcoming and infrastructure needs that are coming up, and we're going to have to execute on those things in the next 5 to 10 years. And so that's going to be challenging. It's very rewarding. The residents are great. Like I said, the team is great, and it allows me and my family to be here, be happy, travel, enjoy life. We only have in theory, 13 more years with Rowan before he's 18. And so just embrace every single one of those and, see what happens after that. But I really don't foresee us living anywhere else in our lives. This is just amazing. When you live somewhere where people want a vacation, you should honor that and just embrace it.
I'd see on Stephen's second portion of that and how we love to close out. How does Jacob Marshall define success?
I think if you got to boil it down to one word, you guys have talked about this in other episodes, but it's just happiness. And so, it's not where I go to work every day. It's not how much money I make. Those are all good things and can come with the hard work that you put in, but being happy to where you come home, being happy as a family, my son being happy and living here and wanting to, go back to that park or back to that beach, back to his backyard here, which is, just so much better than what we had. It's just a different way of life. And when you look back at it, like almost his entire life is here. This is all he knows. I was very short-sighted of myself to go back and just switch that up on him so much. These are really the most impressionable years of his life. And so success to me is just being happy as a family, being together, and, not losing that. It's really what it boils down to, just being obsessed with being happy and doing whatever it takes to do that. And you have to make certain decisions in your life to pivot if things aren't working out the way you thought, but just, be happy for yourself. We're a family unit, but, we wouldn't be here if one of us wasn't happy here. And that was the case there. And so it wasn't working. And so this is where we are, and we love it. And, people need to come visit and see just how incredible it is. We were funny because we came out here in 2020. One of my first cousins from Chandler actually just moved out here in November because they saw where we lived and how amazing it was. And so they had an opportunity. Awesome. They had an opportunity for her husband to come out here. So they moved out here in November and never looked back. And another cousin of mine is over in Pensacola, about an hour and a half away, and they absolutely love it here. And so it's funny, like we came out here first, but we had, a cousin's beach day a month ago, and all three cousins, all the kids, it's like 8 to 10 kids between the three of us. And so we're not quite as alone. And, And one of my sisters actually bought a investment property here as well. So,
Sweet.
It's funny. Once you get people here, they don't leave, and we're gonna have to slow that down a little bit. You don't want the city getting too big because it is a very small town. It's really only a city of like 15,000 people. People don't really, it's a small town. So just that vibe was obviously something that spoke to us and really resonated with us when we got here.
Well, you get to take advantage of the no withholding tax in Florida as well. So that's keep a little more money in your pocket, which is nice. Yeah, I got to get out there, man. You've been busting my chops to get out there and visit you guys in the last couple of years, and as you know, the family and all this stuff, it's busy, but we're gonna make it happen. I can't wait to see you. Really appreciate you jumping on the pod, dude. Great conversation, sharing your story, and you got a lot of love and a lot of great things to give, and the impact you're making is incredible. So, really appreciate you, brother.
Love you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, gents. I love you all, and look forward to doing it again.